Welcome back, Red Spotters! I'm your host, Alexis Soto, joined by Mr. David Francisco, and today we are going to bring to you our proper season review for Stranger Things 4, otherwise known as Stranger Things Season 4, of course, which dropped on Netflix, dear God, almost an entire 2 whole weeks ago. And of course, look, let's just be real here. It is a long season. These episodes are longer, as had been previously advertised. David and I had also given a little bit of a reaction, I want to say last week, but now that I've seen the entirety of it, we're now going to actually have a whole sit-down discussion of it. Peter has had a hell of a week. I'll let him explain in his own time what happened, but he still, I think, to my knowledge, had only seen just one episode of Stranger Things because he's just been so busy with everything else, not just in terms of like media, but also personal wise as well. So Kyle was going to be here, although he had other arrangements. So David and I are just going to take you on this recap of Stranger Things by ourselves, it seems. And just to get some of the stuff out of the way with, we have here the debut Stranger Things for really blew records, as it says here that surged past Obi-Wan Kenobi in streaming showdown. This comes to us from Deadline. The newest batch of episodes of Stranger Things, which arrived on Netflix the same day as Obi-Wan, premiered on Disney+, which powered the show to 5.1 billion minutes of U.S. streaming in the first 3 days, according to Nielsen. These numbers were captured during the week of May 23rd to May 29th. The series debuted on May 27th in a head-to-head clash at the start of a long Memorial Day weekend as Top Gun Maverick was also making its theatrical bow. Nielsen released the figures for the two series today, a departure from its usual rhythm of delivering streaming stats about a month after the fact, and generally on Thursdays. Netflix, which has issued its own weekly top 10 rankings of dozens of countries, had already anointed the latest Stranger Things outing as its biggest English language series. The Season 4 rollout of Stranger Things is a staggered one, with the first 7 episodes landing in May and the final 2 hitting the service in July. According to Nielsen, the show is just the third title ever to crack 5 billion weekly viewing minutes, ranking number 3 after pandemic darlings Tiger King, which had 5.3 billion minutes, and Ozark with 5.2 billion minutes. Those records were established during the intensity of the early COVID lockdowns in March 2020 as Netflix subscriber levels exploded. The current Season 4 episodes of Stranger Things accounted for 4 billion of the total 5.1 billion minutes, according to Nielsen. So what does all that mean? It's a hit. Mm-hmm. I mean, in layman's terms, that's what it is. And it really shouldn't be a surprise, to any of us, really. Stranger Things is one of these things where, for whatever reason, when it's not on, no one talks about it. And even though that's the case, it doesn't mean it's not popular when it's not on the air. Because just judging by the sheer volume of merchandise and its presence at all of these conventions over the years, and when you put that, of course, with what we already know happens to be the case with, the actual data that's been released through Netflix and Nielsen over the years, and then even just anecdotally, we know Stranger Things to be among, if not perhaps the single most popular television show right now. I mean, and that's not saying it is like the most culturally significant one. Mm-hmm. That's not saying it is the best series on television. But when you measure all of the popularity and the success in terms of how, this series is, this is, I think, the perfect example of lightning in a bottle, where that first season it was like an enchantment, and we all loved it, and we all were just drawn to it. And it just became, it exploded out of nowhere. So big. And I think what's also helped is, contrary to some critics out there who would say otherwise, it is my feeling that the subsequent seasons, 2 and 3, very much, kept up with the quality of the first season and only further explored this world and these characters. And I feel if the seasons that came after the first one were so lackluster as some people believe them to be, I don't think Stranger Things would be in the position that we are right now. And I feel, I don't think we've ever said a bad thing about the show, because I honestly don't know. Ultimately, from a quality standpoint, we can have nitpicks. We can have little bit issues with story directions, but as far as execution and as far as quality, I don't know if we've ever had a really terrible thing to say about the show. Because it's just, honestly, it's operating on a level all unto its own, and it continuously seems to keep up the momentum despite the fact. And yes, I understand some people that it's been 3 whole years since the 3rd season, and so because the hype has been kind of dormant or dead, for a better, for a lack of a better word, I guess, you could be excused for not, expecting too much. But I don't know. I mean, I went back and did a rewatch of the whole series late last fall, I believe. And I'm basically doing it all over again because I just finished watching Stranger Things 4, or the first part of it. And I'm like, well, I still want to see more. So you know what? I got the time. I'm going to go ahead and rewatch the whole series. And in the end, by the time that the new episodes drop on the first week of July. But I went back and rewatched those first 3 seasons last fall. And it just became really apparent to me how excellently all of those seasons are structured. And considering the sheer volume of characters, just the size of the ensemble, and it is a formula, yes, that they follow every single season, but when it's this well done, it is really hard to be mad at it. Because every single time they leave us and they come back, they're like, really? Do we really need another year, another season of Stranger Things? But then, the minute that thing starts, they pull us back in, and we're so sucked in. And at least getting into where we are right now with the 4th season, very much like how it was with the 3rd season, as soon as you start watching it, you can't stop watching it. It is so addictive. Just the mystery elements of the show are so intoxicating. They're too tantalizing, maybe for a better word here, that you can't help yourself. But just reel yourself in completely and be glued to what is happening on screen. And I think all of that is alone the markings of an amazingly written television show. But then you add on such wonderful characters that, again, and I've always say, you can have the best quality, but if you don't have characters that keep you engaged with the story, to care about them, I don't think you care about anything in the show. Or anybody here. So it's honestly kind of not surprising, but also surprising at the same time. But I guess that's the long way of me saying that I love the show wholeheartedly. And as far as season 4 is concerned, I thought it was amazing. I think it is amazing, and I think this show is only just warming up, because we still got one more season to go, which is insane. But man, these Duffer Brothers, they know what they're doing. They're taking an original property of theirs, and they're so good at what they do. I concur with what Peter said to me the other day. These two are ready for a movie. Not just any movie. They're ready for a Marvel, Star Wars, DC level movie. And I think they would just crush it. Because already with this original property of theirs, it plays in a similar genre. But I think what is continuously becoming a challenge for them, they're they continue to meet that challenge of not like crush it completely. And the challenge, I think, happens to be not just how do we keep this feeling fresh and interesting again for another season, but how do we do that with maintaining the vast number of characters? Oh, and by the way, also introducing all new ones and keeping like, how do you make all of that work? And I honestly, that's a very good question, how they're able to do it. I don't know, but I think that just speaks to their talent level, honestly, how they keep doing it. So I guess it's easy to say, yes, Stranger Things is great because it's always been great, and they make it look easy. I don't know how they're able to do it. And I just think it's pretty fucking great. And I think it reminds you this season why this show hit so big in the first place and why it continues to be so big. Yeah, it's just it's Stranger Things.
No, yeah.
David, your thoughts?
I mean, in terms of like its popularity, I feel like Stranger Things like revamped just that style of storytelling of group of kids getting into crazy shenanigans. Because I mean, I know people brought up Goonies, like E.T. to kind of like compare it to, and then and then we got, what was it, that Ghostbusters movie that came out that sort of
Afterlife last year.
That was people kept bringing up Stranger Things like, oh, it's like, it really is revitalized. That show really did revitalize that kind of, I guess you can say, genre. I don't know. But also, I know House of Cards was what got Netflix to be popular, but I feel like Stranger Things kind of like solidified, at least maybe like the streaming service popularity. I feel like it was because of that show that kind of like other companies are starting their own streaming services and all that.
No, it definitely changed the game. House of Cards was definitely very successful, and I think it is the show that got people's attention when it came to streaming services making original content. That's going to be crap. Of course, House of Cards changed all of that. But it really wasn't until Stranger Things when people really saw the gold mine that streaming services could be.
And so, yeah, I think in terms of popularity, that's kind of a cool thing to think about what this show did. Well, my thoughts about it, I honestly just really love the kids. I loved them in the first season. They were nerdy. I love the crazy shenanigans that they always get to and everything. And the one thing that really kept me got me to come back to this show was 11. Even though she gets very, very little lines in this show, I kind of care about her progress of like trying to become a normal person and everything. And also like the second season is my least favorite. I don't know what it was about it. It's just like it just didn't capture me as much as the first season did. But right. I did like the relationship between her and Hopper, how that built up and everything. And by the end of it, I love that they were basically father and daughter.
Right.
And so with this season, I really thought, okay, now she's finally gonna be like the normal girl that she always wanted to be, or at least like I wanted to see and everything. I mean, I like what they did with her and everything, but now I'm just curious what's gonna happen to her in the end, obviously. And so the thing that just keeps coming back is 11 and these characters. I think they were fantastic this season, especially Dustin. Oh my gosh, I think Dustin and Nancy, I think they just absolutely killed it in this season. Not just from an acting point of view, but like character point of view. They were great. And the whole 80s aspect of it, I really liked it. I mean, I grew up. My sister, she's the one that always loved the 80s, like the style of it, the music and all that. So seeing more of it that I've ever seen, it's always just fun to watch.
No, yeah, it is. one of the aspects of the show is that it's just drenched in 80s references, but always in a way that's never eye-rolling, as some other franchises tend to do with their callbacks or references, shall we say. No, it never does get that way at all. Yeah, with a large cast like this, you can't help but latch on to the standouts. And every season, there do seem to be different ones. I know, season 3, what really stood out for me was Steve, Dustin, Robin, and Erica. Not that they were the only ones that were interesting, but those definitely stood out. In season 2, Noah Schnapp, who plays Will Byers, really stole the show with his performance. And then obviously in the first season, you're drawn to, Eleven, Joyce. Here, we do have some standouts, at least, trying to remember, both old and new. As far as, like, the rock stars, shall we say, of this season, you have to start off with Sadie Sink, who plays Max. Who I've always just loved on this show, and who maybe has never really been given enough credit considering how good she is in this season. I did see her in Fear Street 1974, and she was terrific in that one. But here you're beginning to see, wow, she is on an amazing level, and I'm so happy to hear that there have been people already calling for Emmy nominations for Sadie here. No, Max is very much integral to the main storyline that we have in Hawkins. Her storyline is intertwined with our new villain, Vecna, who is also, by the way, a standout this season and very fucking interesting in ways I don't think you would have expected until the very last episode. I know I saw some reviews that were like, oh, I saw that Vecna thing coming a mile away, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't. Maybe it was, yes, technically it was staring me in the face, but that was an amazing reveal with, the identity of Vecna, but then also, look, there's so much to talk about, right? So, what a standout villain. I love the prosthetic makeup on Vecna. It is so deliciously creepy, and the way he kills people is even more gruesome. I think the most gruesome kills I think we've seen on this show thus far. Again, we're comparing it to a Demogorgon whose kills we barely saw in season 2. We had the Demodogs that we did see them, I guess, bite people, which killed them. Season 3, however, we had the Mind Flayer literally explode people and use their bodies of meat to form its own. That was disgusting. But here it is, we see several characters here. Their limbs just completely, snap in several different directions, as do their eyeballs explode inside the skull. It is, not a pleasant thing to look at. And so from a gore standpoint, and then also from a horror standpoint, they're really doing a good job of keeping that element part of the show and present. And I would say also because that becomes intertwined with Max. She becomes a target of Vecna. And how that whole episode, I believe it's called Dear Billy. It's episode 4. It mostly focuses on her trying to escape Vecna. To me, that episode entirely, but then I would say even the last moments of that episode, the climax, if you will, of that episode, I think are among the best moments of the entire series. It is masterfully executed and heart-palpingly emotional, if you will. I was on the edge of my seat because I wasn't sure what the outcome would have been. And let me tell you, I was not prepared to lose certain characters in that moment. So I was just like, what's going to happen here? Because the way that they directed that, it made you feel like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know if this is a swan song or if they're going to make it out alive. I think in some ways this season, you're not so sure anymore how secure a lot of these characters are. And we know that we're basically, season 4 is the second to last season, so it's that time when a series is beginning to like turn full circle where you kind of have to be prepared to lose some people, especially when you have a cast that is this ever expanding. The way this season feels like to me is like comparing it to the last 2 Avengers movies. This season 4 feels very much like Infinity War, and then we have the end game that is in season 5. I do not know at this moment how. I don't know if the last episode of season 4, which of course we have yet to see, if that's going to end at a complete cliffhanger. It would suck if it ended in a cliffhanger because I want like a resolution to this season. But that being said, we're going into the last 2 episodes later on. They're 4 hours long together. And we might lose some people here. And that might be, I mean, I think it will be devastating, whoever it is, if we do lose people, because the stakes I don't think have ever been higher for a lot of the storylines that are happening here. We should say from a structural standpoint, the show has never been as big as it is now, because you notice I mentioned there's like one main Hawkins storyline, but you've also got some other ones as well. You've got what's happening with Joyce and Murray, who are venturing out into what I previously assumed was Russia, but as a matter of fact is Alaska. And they're, on the hunt for Hopper, because of course we knew he wasn't dead. So they're on the hunt for Hopper. And then in California, we've got Mike joining Will, Eleven, and Jonathan, and Argyle, which we'll get to in a bit. And then it kind of not converges, but I think it kind of separates into its, because 11 ends up doing her own thing. And then it becomes Mike and company trying to like locate where she went. And then you've got, am I missing one?
No, basically it's just those 3. Hopper and
right.
Joyce,
Well, it's 3, but then it becomes 4 because 11 separates from Mike, and then 11 goes down her own rabbit hole, if you will, this season.
Yeah, there's 4.
So, there's geographically speaking, we're all over the place this season, and I know I've seen people complain about that, because I think it's fair to say, if you're somebody who feels we're at a point where there are way too many characters and there's so much going on, that it's just hard to keep up with it. If you feel that way, sure, that's fair. For me, I appreciated the longer episodes.
I think it worked in their favor, having them all separated, because I know one thing. Every episode, I was like, "Dang, it's over an hour long," and then immediately after, I'm like, "Oh, it's over!" Like every single episode, and so. And I think a part of it is because all the characters were separated, because they all had their own individual story, which all of them are important. I mean, I guess if you had to rank them, like to me, I guess the least important would probably be with Will and the rest of them trying to get to 11. I don't know, but that it's just, again, that them being all different and on different places worked in their favor. It could, because they have, like, for one thing, the editing, it'll just keep moving and moving to the next person, which kind of makes the whole episode seem go by faster. But also, like I said, each one is important to the next, and I feel like because this is the second to the last season, when we finally get to the final season and everyone comes together, it's going to be even more epic. That's one thing that I've always liked about the show, is that whenever everyone starts coming together, because I remember this happening in second season when 11 left, And even though she had that little adventure that nobody liked in the second season.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh my god. I actually wouldn't have minded if they brought them back in the final season, honestly. Like having like all come together fighting Vecna or something. I don't know. But when she came back after that, I was like, fuck yeah. And then I love the shot in the third season where everyone's like, they're on the first level of the mall and they look up, and then 11 and the rest of them, or whoever was with her, I can't remember who it was, you know, they start coming together too. Like they've always made it epic, and this time it's going to be even more epic just because of how far apart everyone is. It's just gonna feel so nice going like, dang, you all went through a lot. And now you're finally together, and it feels like, okay, now you're gonna accomplish the mission. Like you're finally, everything's gonna work out. It's gonna feel that way, and then it's gonna make it even more sad when someone actually dies. Which I kind of have a theory as to who it might be, at least for one.
I have one as well. Yeah, I think you're right. Ultimately, I never really been one of those people that would has felt the show has ever dipped in quality, and I don't think this season is any exception. For one, the show just keeps moving and moving and moving. So as far as like pace is concerned, I don't see an issue there whatsoever. As you were saying, also, I do think characters that really do stand out for me this season include Dustin and Nancy. Man, are they really working overtime to prove their worth to this series and this ensemble? You know, in a lot of ways, I know with Dustin, he really has stepped up in a big way to lead that team in Hawkins in the absence of Mike. In some ways, the absence of Lucas for a little bit at the beginning, then also Will. So, and then even and Max was absent for the first episode or two. So, yeah, no, I feel in many ways Dustin has become a true leader and kind of really appreciated a lot of the human moments. And then on the other aspect of it, you have Nancy, who is just maybe the smartest character on the show, because she just pieces together things pretty quick, and then she just goes and goes and goes. All the while, I am really appreciative and very much entertained by Steve and Robin's friendship. I love the pairings that we got also with Robin joining Nancy, and those two kind of seeing how they would get along. Also, the amazing introduction of Eddie. What a hilariously great character. It's one of those that's played at the very first episode, and you're not really sure what to make of him, and maybe part of you feels like, I don't know about this guy. But then he wins you over almost pretty quickly, I would say, and you really do feel a lot for the guy and him. When we get to the latter half, because there's this section in the season where he joins Robin, Nancy, and Steve as they go into the Upside Down, and I love a lot of the stuff that we see there. Erica, Lucas's little sister, continues to be just the absolute funniest character on the show. How she just blows people away. Man, the mouth she has on her, not just as big, but really smart. And it's just it's so disarming. I don't know if there's a character that can never really shut her up. But I would say at first, when she was introduced in the series, you could say maybe she was annoying. I think she's a lot more than that. I'm not even sure. I'm never really annoyed by her, but she herself has also proven to be relatively smart as well. In Hawkins, we have a different storyline, and I'm very much concerned because what happens with the character of what's the character's name on the basketball team? The white supremacist.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm bad at
he's not a white supremacist, but he's basically Gaston, where he's kind of a douchebag, and from the very beginning, I just don't understand what it is people can't not detect about people with malicious intent, because this character basically introduces himself to the audience by using the deaths of everyone in last season to, boost up morale for some cockamamie basketball game. Because, of course, that's what matters most to him. And I know to an extent it is an important thing for the community, but it also is I think it's a pretty red flag when you're using a tragedy to make your game seem like this altruistic event that is so important to the community and everything. And it just gave me really bad vibes. Even more so that almost immediately, when the stupid-ass cops alert him of his girlfriend, Chrissy, being murdered, and could not at all anticipate the fact that this is an individual who would absolutely take matters into his own hands, become an extremist vigilante by gathering up his whole posse to basically target people and borderline torture them to go and find someone who he dubs as a freak. And for all I know, he was going to kill him. Probably was going to kill him. Considering how overtly violent and hostile these people have proven themselves to be. And I want to just get this whole storyline out of the way with now because it is just so infuriating. Because it gets fucking worse. This is one of these people who is so closed off to any potential that they're wrong. And whenever they're confronted with evidence to the contrary, they rationalize it in a way that it only makes sense to them. And it continues that they were right this whole time. So when he sees one of his friends being murdered by Vecna, who levitates people up in the air, and then completely crushes their innards and everything. And because this happens, as he's chasing Eddie, he becomes further convinced, oh my God, Eddie's a witch. What a fucking idiot. And what's even worse, the police allow this maniac, this sociopath, to hijack a press conference, town hall for the community. They just let him walk up and steal the mic. And he uses this to spur on Hawkins, the Hawkins community, who, by the way, is unbelievably on edge after years of horrible shit happening to their community. They're at a point where they've lost complete hope in the police. The police do not seem to realize this. And so what happens? This charismatic young white guy that has tendencies that are overtly violent in nature is now going to spur, like Gaston in Beauty and the Beast, is going to spur on an angry mob to go and hunt children. All because they were in a Hellfire Club or played Dungeons and Dragons. And it is so, and by the way, this is no critique of the show or how it is executed on the show. It is so well done. But as a viewer, it is just so infuriating how many times we have to see this play out. And it continues to take people by surprise that we're living in an era where our democracy is continuously being subverted and inevitably will be overthrown by people like, what's his name? Patrick? Something?
Maybe? I don't know.
I don't know.
The basketball player.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy. And it's just and it's just so infuriating because he just literally took the mic from the police. The fucking police. If he were black, he would have been shot dead. He wouldn't have gotten anywhere close to the microphone. I'm sorry. I'm just situations like these are infuriating. And I think what I really loved about that storyline was that Lucas, who, starts off this season wanting to be popular and wanting to be more well-liked and liking these guys that he's hanging out with, he knows better. And I'm so glad they made him know better because I was so afraid that Lucas was going to be with those assholes the entirety of this season And it wouldn't be until the very end where he would realize, oh my God, these guys are bad news. And then he would leave them. No. What I loved about this is that Lucas very early on realized shit's happening and these guys are unhinged and I better go at them and make sure they don't kill anybody. And then, even further to the point, once he realized his own friends became, the targets, Lucas intentionally diverted them away as far away as possible and then ditched their asses. Mm-hmm. So I was just very proud of Lucas for being able to detect that monster and whatever he was going to do. No, that guy's a psychopath. Like, seriously, he is a fucking psychopath. And I swear, I hope Vecna kills him. I am rooting for him to be murdered. And I want that to be known. Even more so than that bitch that kept, like, torturing 11. Which, let's get to that. What the fuck was that?
Are you talking about...
In the first part of the season, we have... she's in school and she's being bullied.
Oh, okay.
By Angela. Is it Angela? Yeah, it's Angela.
I'm bad with names.
I did not feel bad at all for what happened to her. I am sorry. I don't even care if her head was split open. She can go fuck herself.
Yeah.
She was being a monstrous human being, and no one around her was doing anything about it. And can you believe all of those assholes at the skating rink that were like, oh my God, poor Angela. And they didn't give a fuck about the humiliation or the downright torture and abuse that 11 was going through.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck you. Seriously, fuck you. Again, I'm being triggered left and right here, but that's a whole thing. So in California, the buyers have moved away. 11 is moving with them. We see 11 and Will at school. And off the bat, you can just tell based on that, with not even a word being said, they're not the most comfortable there. They don't seem to have made any friends whatsoever aside from Jonathan, and one at that. And it just seems to be a miserable time. I mean, minus Joyce, she seems to have gotten a new job and moderately enjoying that, of course, until it's ruined when she realizes Hop may be alive. So there's that. But Jonathan is miserable to an extent because, by the way, Argyle is an amazing new character, and I love every single moment he gets on this show because he continues to make me laugh every single time he's on screen. So thank you, writers, for introducing that character, and you got the perfect actor to play that character, and he just gels so well with everybody.
Yeah.
Jonathan's thing, from what I can understand, is he is intentionally distancing himself from Nancy, who he still loves, but the reason why he's distancing himself from her is because he feels he's going to weigh her down. I don't think they're no longer going to attend the same university together, and that the journalism thing was always more her thing or her dream, and he doesn't want to affect that in any way. And Hawkins, we see Nancy, feel that Jonathan is distancing himself from her. And that makes sense on its own. We'll get to the Steve thing in a bit, but on its own, that makes perfect sense because they are like nowhere near each other. And inevitably, that is a consequence of separation, right? Like, you're going to be distant.
Yeah.
Ultimately, yeah.
It was the same thing happening with Will and not Will, with 11
and Mike. Well, technically all three of them, right?
Yeah, I guess all three of them. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike. Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, true. The only thing though is that with Mike and Will, they do kind of work it out at one point. They're just kind of like, I think we just haven't been communicating much. And they kind of just.
It takes. Doesn't it take until like the last episode for that to happen?
No, I think it happens. I think it happens in episode 4 where they actually do talk it out a bit. It's just kind of like they don't get sort of what's the word? Like they don't get back into the groove, I guess, until maybe the last episode. It takes like that whole season to kind of like for them to be best friends again in a way.
I think Nancy's great. Jonathan so far hasn't gotten much to do except for just be Jonathan and like pal around with Argyle. That scene at the dinner table when they're high as fuck, I think has to be one of my favorite scenes in the whole show. I loved it so much, from Jonathan and Argyle's aloofness to Murray just knowing what it is, Joyce's confusion, and then Will just being so like over everything. It was just a perfect scene, and I'm dying to see it again. Ultimately, I mean, seriously, I am. There is this thing happening. I am thinking, I love Joe Keery as Steve Harrington.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think maybe he's the one that's first on the chopping block.
Yeah.
So to speak. When we come back.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you remember, but the last time we talked about it, I mentioned that there was a forced relationship going on. This is them, Steve and Nancy, and I did not like it at all. One, everyone keeps telling, like, they keep pointing the camera at other people, going like, "Oh, hey, there's like a spark going on here," and like no one seems to like talk to them about the fact that she already has a boyfriend. Like, I don't think anyone ever really brings it up at all. They're just kind of like, "Hey, you two, come on, like, you know, there's something going on, right?" It's like, come on, really? And it was really bothering me, especially the fact that you know, the only reason why she's having relationship problems with the other guy is because they're just far
Jonathan?
away. Yeah, with Jonathan, it's because they're far away. You know, that's why I brought up Mike and Will, in that, like, you know, as soon as they kind of talked it out, everything's kind of getting back to normal. And I feel like that's going to be the same way with Nancy and Jonathan. Like, as soon as they see each other, it's going to be like, oh, I can definitely see Jonathan being like, oh, I was being stupid. Like, I got to go to college with her. Like, why did I ever think this in the first place, you know? And so that's really the thing that bothers me. No one's bringing up the fact that she already has a boyfriend. I know for a fact that, like, it doesn't seem like they are.
Robin did
up at
for
all.
a minute.
And I understand why it's them two, because, you know, they had a thing in the first season and all that. And I can definitely understand, like, oh, maybe there's some sparks going on. But I just kind of like the fact, though, that they're friends. That kind of friends, and they still remain that way. But if it's to make it more emotional when he dies, if he dies, I might be okay with it in the end. It's just, they could have gone about it differently, I guess. So, yeah, that's one of my biggest problems in this season. I have another one that I'll get to in the end. It's nothing big or anything, but yeah, that's definitely one of my biggest problems with the show.
Yeah, I think to me that was the aspect of this season, amongst all the other things that are going down. That was the one that, you know, I found quite curious. Why is it that we're stopping so many times to get the idea out there that Steve has feelings for Nancy, and maybe some part of Nancy still loves Steve? And I can't understand ultimately why all of a sudden the Duffers would just like, you know what, maybe we want to get Steve and Nancy back together. And I wonder if, I can't help but wonder, as a matter of fact, if all of this is an intentional design to make a grand send-off for Steve. And I wonder if it's going to be almost immediately, because we leave off this season. And by the way, people, I'm so sorry, but if you haven't figured it out already, this is spoilers. When we leave the first 7 episodes, we don't know, we still have Nancy's fate up in the balance. And what I could very easily see happening, maybe not that moment, but we know that, like, Nancy's trapped by Vecna. I know some eagle-eyed viewers already caught that Robin had some, I think, tapes from Nancy's room when they were there in the Upside Down. So maybe they'll have that ready to play to get out of Vecna's curse and everything. But if not, Steve and Nancy technically are still in the Upside Down when we leave off this season, this first part of the season.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that big of a leap to see Steve sacrificing himself for Nancy.
Mm.
That probably could happen. It will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you think about it, they also set up Robin being friends with Nancy. Before that, Robin was just friends with Steve.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this whole thing has been saying goodbye to Steve. Who knows?
Yeah. Actually, that was one thing I really liked about the show. Robin and Steve's friendship, like, it was so great seeing them in the beginning. Like, they're just great going back and forth with each other, and they're so hilarious together. And I remember when Robin and Nancy first teamed up, I was kind of like, oh, this is a different team up
dynamic.
Here. Yeah, this is a different dynamic here going on. It's like, it's kind of weird, it's kind of off, and not in a bad way. Like, I think it was intentional, because as the episodes progress, they're slowly getting the dynamic not the same as Robin and Steve, but like, you know, they're getting their own groove. They're getting their own groove, and I was like, dang, that's actually really cool. And so, yeah, you could be right. It could be you just have her and have Robin and Nancy be friends, because it might kill off Steve. I don't know. I feel like he is kind of like the safest bet to die. Yeah, because, you know, Hopper and Joyce, like, you want them to be together. The other guy, they could kill him off. But I don't really see him like sacrificing himself for anyone. Or I don't know. So he's also the safest bet, but it's not gonna be emotional at all like the other characters. With the rest, I mean, I don't know. They're really young, so it's gonna be super sad if any of them do die.
I mean, there's always a chance the reverse of what I just said happens, and maybe Nancy gets killed immediately when we come back.
Yeah, that's true too.
Out of everyone right now, those two characters are in the most precarious situation.
Yeah.
They're directly in Vecna's crosshairs.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's tough. Dang. I think that's the one thing that sucks about being a writer. You're just like, you know, you gotta kill off characters.
Yeah, because then the fun's over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a hard call. It's hard to see them killing Nancy because Jonathan's still there, and you have to see them together at some point. I can't imagine them just leaving. Or maybe they do. Who knows? Like, I mean, honestly, it's hard to be sure at this point.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, and also though, like I said, I mean, we both said it too. Like Nancy and Dustin, like they were kind of like the badasses of this season. You know, they were figuring everything out. They were trying to piece things together. They were the ones moving the team along to the next mission, I guess, to the next part of the quest and everything. And so I can't really see them killing her off, especially because there's still very few female characters in this group. I feel like it's gonna suck if they kill one of them off, you know. But yeah, no, Nancy though, like I think she's the one of the most badass because she just kept going with her gut, and it kept leading her to the next little revelation that we get and everything. Like she was being a reporter. That it worked very well. Yeah, so I don't know. That's tough, man.
It is. So one of the other reasons, David, why I think Steve might be in some peril here is because, I mean, that last episode, he got a couple of chunks bitten out of his belly, it looked like, from some demobats in the Upside Down, and is he going to be okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that could lead to something bad. Which I wouldn't mind. I feel like I can definitely see him sacrificing himself for the group. And it's because of, you know, if there is some kind of like rabies or whatever within those bites. Yeah, I can definitely see him like sacrificing himself for the rest. So yeah, I think for sure he's like number one on the list of kills.
Yeah. So let me just get to the other aspect of this. Man, I really thought Max was a goner, David. I really thought she was gone. Like that whole episode, and I thought what was really like, she was so forward and like just prepared with dying that she had written everybody a letter in case she did die. Basically like saying goodbye. And holy crap, like they really sold me on the idea we're losing her. Even up until the very end. But I just thought that whole sequence was outstanding. The idea to use music, and what a perfect song choice to like make it back from the brink of oblivion. Oh my god, it was perfect to me. What did you make of that episode and those moments where she was about to be killed, and then at the very last moment, escaping Vecna?
Yeah, no, I really like the escape from Vecna. I like the little setup, I guess, of using music to try and draw them out and everything. But ultimately, I was kind of like, I was never really worried that she was going to die. But I did kind of get emotional how she was trying to escape. You know, it just, she in the third season, she was always the outcast. She was thinking she was going to be the outcast, but then she gets brought in by these guys and everything. And so to kind of cut herself off from the rest of them because of what happened, it was kind of sad. And I kind of like the emotional journey that she went through, especially that scene with her and her mom, which even though it was fake, it was real for her. And I really enjoyed it. And so when she was finally escaping from Vecna, again, the music was actually, it was a really good choice because it really got to emotional for her and everything. And I was rooting for her, like, get out, get out, get out. And when she did make it out and everything, and everyone was kind of like hugging her and all that, I really liked it. You can definitely see the change afterwards from that scene that she was finally open with the rest of them. She kind of didn't want to be left out. Like, she really wanted to be in this group now for sure. And I love the fact that song got so popular after the show. My dad just sent a text to a group chat, and he was like, I remember when this song first came out, and his sister, my aunt, was actually like really loved this song when it first came out and everything. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So yeah, that's really cool.
Wow. Shall we talk about what's happening in California? So, let's see, I don't even know where to start here. So, 11 to the side of things. Well, you know what? Before we get to that, what was your other big complaint or nitpick? I was going to ask, aside from the Steve and Nancy thing, what was your other big issue at this season that you wanted to bring up?
It was just the ending. The explanation of Vecna's origin. I just think it went on a bit too long. We could have shortened it.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, especially because like I kind of didn't really care about his reasons for hating humanity and all that. I feel like they should have just focused on the reveal itself. Like, hey, this person is Vecna. This is what happened in that place where Eleven was taken or raised. And so I feel like if they just focused on that, it would have been the reveal would have been a lot better for me. Especially because like I was kind of confused at the fact as to why Vecna was showing Nancy all of it. Like, I think maybe it was just. I feel like if we kind of got, you know, what would have been better if we got that conversation that he had with 11, also with Nancy. You know.
Well, the reason he was showing Nancy was because he's been following Nancy and he knows what Nancy's been up to. And before he kills her, he's the kind of character that's much of a showboat, right? So he wants to give Nancy the answer she was looking for before he kills her. I mean, that's the way I took it.
Yeah, I got that too. It's just, you know, I think to maybe kind of make it more engaging, but also have it move super fast. I feel like he could have told her why he hates humanity too, just to kind of like keep it going. Okay. I don't know. Do you get what I mean?
No, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think you may, yeah. I don't really feel the same way because I was like really like caught up in it. So, but I understand. Did you see that twist coming?
No, I honestly thought that guy the whole time in 11's flashbacks was like kind of like subconsciously her protector or something. Yeah, like you know, he was the one blocking her from seeing the memories that she blocked out or something. Like I don't know why I thought that was it the whole time. I really didn't think he was real until, you know, we were getting to their escape before everything went to shit, and I was like, oh, you're number one, obviously. As to whether or not he was the one that killed everyone, that was a big surprise.
Right?
That was a big surprise.
I was pretty convinced that 11 did in the beginning of the season, but then they go back and show you, and it's like, whoa, damn, that guy's pure evil.
Yeah. Also, actually, one thing I really liked about the scene, though, in the end, was that I remember in the second season, I didn't like that little thing her sister, 11's sister, told her about, like how using her anger will make her stronger and everything, and all that. And then they were bringing it back up in this season with number one telling her the same thing, basically. I really don't like that. Just personally, like in all superhero like movies and everything, you know, it's always about like, you know,
because that's like in Star Wars, that's the dark side of the Force. Yeah. But in this instance, like, well, we found a rebuff to that, right? Because 11 didn't use her anger to overpower Vecna. She used love. Yeah, when she first, blasted him off into the Upside Down.
Yeah, and so I'm just kind of glad we're finally getting rid of that little story bit of her powers, and hopefully we see a stronger version now of her.
Did you like all of the stuff that happened with 11? I was a bit surprised what we had here. So we begin the season with a contingent of the government on the hunt for her to kill her because they're stupidly convinced that she's the one that's causing these deaths. What a bunch of idiots, first of all. All right, so the less said about them, the better. But then again, not really, because what happens, like, evidently they know where they are, and they're about to, like, attack, and there's always that sense of danger out there, and that's always on edge, because you saw what happened with that shoot down at the Byers house in California, which was intense.
Oh my god, I know. I think like we literally never seen anything like that in this show. So when it happened, you're just kind of like, "What the fuck?" and
then of course they top it off with Argyle coming in.
Why is he holding that gun? It's like, drive. Oh my god, it was hilarious. It was actually really shot well. Like I kind of like that they kind of went with a one shot scene and everything. Like it was really, really good. Also, good on the fucking guards that they had. Usually, like whenever there's guards, you know, they're just kind of dumb. They get away and everything, but no, not this time. They actually, like, one of them at least did a really good job protecting them and all that. And it was actually kind of sad when he died, because it was like, dang, you freaking did your job to the end.
I know.
Like, come on,
to the very end. Yeah, that was crazy. So I'm really trying to piece together the mythology of all of this. So Dr. Owens comes back. Dr. Owens we first saw in season 2, and he was the one that came after Brenner in charge of the Hawkins lab, and was always seen as very friendly and not at all a monster, unlike what had come before. And so he gets a lot of really good scenes with 11. And there was a bit of a shocker that happens once he takes 11 to the secret base. Mm-hmm. And that is Matthew Modine, Dr. Martin Brenner, is alive and well and working with Owens. And that was kind of like something I was not at all expecting to happen. First of all, it makes me question then, so Owens and Brenner very clearly are not friends, but they seem to be allied for the moment because they know of the danger that's going to happen in Hawkins. I'm a little torn what to think. So does this mean that Brenner and Owens were always working with each other? Or they just happen to be working with each other now because of 11?
I would say... I wouldn't say they were working together. But maybe because he was alive and because 11 was a bit of a success, maybe he just kind of let him go, let him do his own thing. But it wasn't until what was happening at Hawkins that they were like, okay, now I need him back. You know?
Yeah, and then what did you make of all the scenes with 11 and Dr. Brenner?
Wait, which one's that one? That's the
Papa.
Okay. I don't like that guy. Not from like he's like a badly written character or anything like that. Like, no, I don't know what your intentions are here. Like, I don't.
See, that's what keeps me interested, because I used to just think that he was just a straight up bad guy, and he is. But now his intentions are much more unclear. Ultimately, at the end of the day, and it kind of makes you question. A lot of the season makes you question what was really motivating Brenner through all the horrible things that he kept doing. And it actually is interesting because they have interesting moments as characters this season, Brenner and 11. And there was a wonderful exchange that Brenner had with 11 about, do you see the world as too much black and white? There's a lot of gray in between. And I think in that moment, he was also referring to himself. So, I don't know. I guess it does come as a bit of a surprise that Brenner is not a complete monster. That there may be some altruistic motivations that keep him going throughout all of the work and experimentation he's done into. It's very interesting. And of course, we see 11 going in through her inner... It reminded me a lot of... what was it called? You know how Fitz and Simmons in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. go into their... there's that episode where their brains are interlinked and they have to go back to their memories to solve, figure out their shit. It reminded me basically of that, where 11 has to really relive the trauma that her body blocked out. And I think the Duffers have even gone so far as to say that that was such a traumatic experience for 11. It kind of was the equivalent of a stroke or something, where she went into a coma. And that's why a lot of the stuff that we see in season 1, she has trouble speaking, or she has trouble with words and everything because she went through all of that. That's really interesting to hear. But yeah, it looks like all this was needed to get 11's powers back at the end of the day, because we need those goddamn powers. Because if we don't, holy shit.
Yeah, I like the running joke that they were like, man, things were a lot easier with 11 here.
Yeah, they were. And so, but I mean, yeah, everybody is at the mercy of Vecna without 11. But it's interesting. 11's the only person that has beaten Vecna, so now that she's got her powers back, I guess we're amping up towards a showdown of sorts. That's going to be so exciting to see when that does happen. I want to ask though, I really wonder what it is that a lot of characters just haven't picked up on it. What have you made of Will and Mike this season? And what do you believe is going on there? Because to my eyes, it's very clearly something. It's very clearly one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of... there's a particular exchange that Will and Mike have toward the end of this first part of the season that I think confirm what's going on there. What do you feel?
Mike's the one living in California, right? Or is it...
No, that's Will. Mike is the one that, his girlfriend is 11, and Will Byers is the one that went missing.
Okay. I'm so bad with names. I hate it.
Don't worry, so is Peter.
I mean, Will for sure has feelings for Mike. I think that was fairly obvious. I mean, in the beginning with the 11th letter to Mike, I thought maybe Will had a crush on someone else, maybe on someone in school or something. But no, later on we see that it's clearly still towards Mike and everything.
It's never said, but I think it's pretty clearly telegraphed with a lot of facial expressions. Did you think this came out of nowhere, or do you think it's been building to this for a while?
I think it's been building for a while. It's just, it was never really the forefront of it. And I think they're doing it now because, again, the stakes are high. So I think they want to, if there is a death between those two, they want to make it emotional as possible.
Yeah.
So... yeah, and I mean, and it also makes sense story-wise. How they were best friends in the beginning, but now because they're separated, their groove is all off and everything. And so really building it up, Will is not realizing like maybe he has feelings for a man. Well, maybe he realized that he has more feelings towards Mike than he thought. If I think that does make sense narratively. So, as to what's going to happen to them, I have no idea. I think it's a bad idea to kind of confess your love to Mike.
I'm not sure what's gonna come of it, especially because we know that Mike already loves 11.
Mm-hmm. And I think I don't think he would have admitted it to Will, but I think maybe Mike might know. I have no evidence of this in this season or anything, but like I don't know. Maybe I would like to think that maybe their friendship.
I think Mike knows something's off, but I'm not sure if he can. Sometimes Mike can be a bit dense. I don't know if we can figure that out. As far as Will is concerned, yeah, I mean, there was, that last exchange that they had in one of those episodes where Will himself said that, sometimes people don't tell each other everything because out of fear for that person not liking the truth. So, I don't know. I feel bad out of the whole situation. I don't know how it'll end well. That's what I'm concerned about it. I just want somebody to fucking pick up on it. Because it's so fucking obvious, but seemingly to nobody else in the show. 11 is the only one that could, at least had a guess that he liked somebody, but everybody else is like, who's Will? Mm-hmm. That's basically how it feels like. So with all that being said, now, what are your thoughts with the storyline with Joyce, Murray, and Hopper? Man, isn't it hilarious?
Mm-hmm. It's actually one thing. 11's
yes, go ahead.
And Will's relationship. I kind of wish they had a bit more of a brotherly sister. At least it was. At least they had a bit more of a friendship between the two.
I wish we'd seen more of it. Yes, I agree with you.
I don't know. I feel because for sure they all care about her, they want her back and everything. That's all nice and all. But I don't know. I just feel like maybe they could have had a cool dynamic between the two. So I don't know. Maybe next season we'll finally see it. I don't know. In terms of Hopper and Joyce, I just found it hilarious the whole time, honestly. Like, that one guy, he is so fucking funny.
Murray?
Yeah, Murray. He's so fucking funny the entire time.
Everything he does is hilarious.
That bit where he was like, I'm a black belt. Like, I think I can take him. And you think he's going to fail completely, but he was on point. It
actually paid off.
Yes. I was like, oh wow, he actually like trained for this. Cool. That's awesome. In terms of Hopper, I like the fact that he just kept trying to fight for 11. He kept trying to go back to her and everything, and then at one point when he finally kind of gave up, his one thing to do was to stop the Demogorgon that was in the prison.
Yeah. I guess like we forget sometimes, right? Because there's so many characters, but you forget how talented some of the actors can actually be. David Harbour, for instance, he is such a treasure, and I feel so bad for him in his career that he hasn't had bigger hits, and he's kind of like been caught in some unfortunate, like he's been in like superhero films that unfortunately have been some of the ones that just do not lead to more success. Everybody forgets he was even the fucking like Red Guardian on the Black Widow movie, because everybody forgets that movie exists. So that didn't pay off at all.
Yeah.
And he was also Hellboy, that's another movie people forget exists.
Which he was really good casting for that. Like, I really thought he would have done well, but I guess the movie sucked.
Just no one was interested because you didn't bring back Guillermo del Toro. Also, so I feel bad, but at least he's got this, and he gets a couple of moments here where it's like he has a couple of monologues, and it's like, God damn, you're making me cry here, Jim. Like, it was pretty fucking powerful stuff. Yeah. And then it all coalesced in this like thrilling climax and the return of the Demogorgon. And holy fuck, though, did you see how quickly that Demogorgon like dispatched a lot of those Russians? They didn't have a prayer. Holy fuck. It was just like, it was legit some gladiator fights right there. And that Demogorgon was like loving every minute of it. Jesus Christ. It was bad.
Yeah. But I'm glad that Hopper and Joyce are back together, because I think out of all of them, that's the one relationship that I'm rooting for the most.
Yes, absolutely.
If Jonathan and Nancy break up in this, or maybe one of them does die,
I'll live. But I better see Joyce and Jim together.
I want to see them happy together. God damn it!
They definitely deserve it, because they've always had a spark since the very first episode of the show. Like, that's the one where it's like, yeah, those two have very clearly have been meant to be together, but for circumstances they've always like not. And then with Joyce, man, she's had some terrible luck in the love department.
Oh yeah,
that's for sure. With a shitty ex-husband, and then the guy Bob, and he was done dirty. That Bob, he was eaten up by dogs.
Oh yeah,
sad. Remember that? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I just remember that bit. It's like, oh, what is this? A treasure map or something? That's a stupid joke. It worked for me.
Sean Astin was so good on this show.
Wow,
man.
Bob. I can't believe I forgot about it. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. That's what. Go back and watch the seasons. There's a lot of stuff you forget. I asked Peter if he thought it was a mistake to not have at least watched a recap before watching the first episode of season 4, and it was a mistake, because you forget so much. Because guess what? You haven't seen the show in 3 years. Of course you're gonna forget, and some seasons maybe even longer than 3 years. You're gonna forget the smallest details, and rest assured, there's some shit that you didn't even know was being set up. Like, for instance, the character of Murray was first introduced in the very first episode of season 2. Yes, he did play a larger role in the second half of season 2, and then even more in season 3. But do you remember that in the first episode where we see Murray outside of the police office and confronts Jim, and he has a theory that the Russians have infiltrated Hawkins, And that was a whole season in advance of what happened in the next season when they actually have infiltrated Hawkins.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's funny.
Isn't it? It's like there's a lot of... You go back and watch those seasons and like, man, the Duffers really planted a lot of seeds there that really like, came to fruition. Oh, gosh. It is just... It's an excellent show. Mm-hmm. It really is. And I also think it's one that rewards people for repeat viewings as well. So I implore people, if you love this show, just go back and watch it because you're going to pick up a lot of things you even yourself may have forgotten even happened. Like, I guess David forgot Bob existed.
Yeah.
So, and that was a big deal for that season. So, yeah, I don't know. I think like right now my favorite season is still the third one. Mm-hmm. I think that's the one where like I felt the most for everybody involved. But season 4, I don't know. It's pretty fucking great. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we also tease what we expect will happen with what's it called? We think that Steve or Nancy are the ones that are up first in line to get off. I guess that's the way to say it. I am also. We should also say, don't you think that other guy? That the piece of shit asshole I was talking about, don't you think he's one of the ones that would be in the running to die?
The basketball guy?
Yes.
Yeah, I would. Honestly, I don't know, because I feel like they could end it off with him like realizing like, oh, this wasn't the work of the devil at all, or maybe he'll see Vecna and he's like, oh my god, it's the devil, and just starts freaking...
Jason. His name is Jason, not Patrick. It's
wow.
Jason.
Okay, well, we're off.
Yeah, no, Jason. No, never mind. I am begging the cosmos, kill him. Mm-hmm. I don't want no redemption.
No.
I just want justice.
No, not a redemption. It's more so like he'll finally realize like what is actually going on and feel stupid and maybe just like run away at the end. I don't know. Like people do see him as a coward later on or something at the end.
But something that I don't know if it can be resolved, David, the people of Hawkins are so fucking amped up right now that whatever resolution happens, even if they defeat Vecna, how is it going to calm down the people of Hawkins?
Yeah.
And is Eddie even guaranteed to be safe? Even if Vecna gets taken down? Like,
I mean, the dude's like way over 17. Like I think they said that he had to repeat senior year 3 times. Like he's an adult now. I think the best thing for him is just get out. Get out of Hawkins and start somewhere.
It feels like more now than ever Hawkins is like at a breaking point. And I don't know if there's any going back.
Yeah.
So I wonder how any of that's going to be addressed. Most assuredly, what will happen is it's going to piss me off one way or the other. And I really hope Vecna unleashes on those assholes. I really do. Come on, Vecna. I'm pulling for you. Please. But yeah. From what I understand, Kyle really loved this season. Peter really liked the first episode. And then whenever they're available and we can get their thoughts on them as well. But any last thoughts on this season, Dave?
No, I think I said everything. I'm just excited for the last season, and again, I can't wait for them to all come back together. It's gonna feel so nice.
Yeah, that's always the sweet spot when they converge into one story.
Yeah, I know I said epic before, but I don't think it's gonna be epic exactly. I think this is going to be very emotional. The Avengers Assemble scene, that was epic. This is for sure gonna be emotional.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. As always, thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. Of course, as a reminder, you can listen to our weekly recaps of Miss Marvel. And then next time with Peter, hopefully we'll talk about a whole bunch of movies and TV shows we always do here on Red Spotlight. Keep it in our Spotlight for more episodes and more every single Sunday. And maybe also on some other days as well if we have more content out. There's so much more to go, so much more to see here in 2022. So thank you for staying tuned, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.